So there's the overlay that I printed out, and then I put it on this piece of plexiglass here. Mounted a piece of proto board on there, and right now I'm currently working on fixing the screen to the assembly. This is the other part of the overlay, and then a piece of laminate paper will go over top of that. So well, I'm going to fix this screen right now. Okay, got the screen mounted. So the heads of the bolts are these pan head. They stick out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is grind them down. I'm going to recess the actual plastic. The bolt right here and right here. They all stick out. So once I grind them down, I'll recess them, and I'll put some epoxy over them to fill the gap in. And then this overlay will be taped down, and then the next overlay will be put over top, and the adhesive, the press adhesive paper will be put on top. So now I'm going to grind these down. Okay, I put everything apart. Now I have my holes so I can recess things. I went ahead and made it black around the perimeter of the screen just so that the circuit board wouldn't be visible while looking at the LCD screen. And now I'm going to recess them. Here's the old Unimat running, and now I'm recessing the hole here. There we can see it. Just have an end mill in there. So I'll go through here and recess all these holes. And now that I made a thorough mess with the plastic here, all the holes are recessed. We'll clean up a little bit and grind the heads down. So I made a mistake in the earlier recess. Did you catch it? Well, notice that I recessed the back, but I was saying that I was going to grind the heads off. Well, I was thinking that I'm going to put nuts in here while I'm recessing, and then meanwhile I'm saying exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going surface mount, so I got to grind the heads. So I did the wrong size, and being that it's not symmetrical, i.e. centered, it's a flop. Now if I wanted to put some nuts in there and epoxy them in, that'll work pretty good. But I'll just use this for a template for some other projects because it's pretty much lined up ready for this circuit board at least. So that's what we're looking at now. Now I'm going to grind those heads off. Which you can see that they're not sticking out too much. I just don't want to go too deep into the plexiglass there, lose some of the strength. But I'll grind them off and then put some epoxy over it. Okay, now that I have the screw heads all ground down, and it's pretty much a flat surface there. I have some epoxy mixed up, and then just I'll just use an old card. You can use a credit card, old dish card, anything for a squeegee. So we'll apply that now. This is the result after squeegeeing the surface. Obviously the epoxy is applied. And let's see if we can... You can see there it has a fairly flat surface, so we should have no problem at all putting our overlay down. The overlay is going to be the last thing that goes down. I'll actually wait till this dries, and I'll put the overlay on it, the plastic one right here. Tape it on where it belongs, hold it up to the light, and I'll mark where the approximate buttons will be. Then I'll mount the buttons and drill the holes. I'm a little pressed for time, so instead of waiting for the epoxy to set up, I just went ahead and just taped the overlay here onto it. I'm going to reprint this overlay anyway, so there's no loss there. So now what I'll do is, there we can clearly see where the buttons will be. So I'll just go ahead and mark them, and then I'll find a suitable arrangement for the tact switches to be installed. Now you can see that I just marked where the buttons will be. And now I'll go through and find some tack switches. I'm not going to solder them yet because I want to make sure that these epoxy joints set up first. So this is what I come up with for switches. I have some little, I think they're, what are they, 5mm or something, tack switches here. Obviously they're going to be soldered any other way. I'm just getting an idea of how they're going to be placed. And then we'll drill holes through for the switches, and then there'll be adjustment here with the threads. That's why I prefer to go this route with a service mount when I'm doing something like this, rather than actually gluing the, let's say with this one here, gluing a nut in, or to glue the nut in right here, and then it would be just a lot more difficult to adjust the spacing of the circuit board, because the circuit board is not going to be flush against here. Tack switches are going to be back there, and then there's going to be a little bit of a gap so that the buttons aren't pushing against the overlay too much. And what I haven't done yet is consider the LEDs here. So I have to drill some holes for the LEDs once this sets up. And once I figure that out, I'll also go through and drill I'll solder the switches in first, and I'll go through and mark it and drill them. So you should be getting the impression that this thing is basically designing itself. I'm just kind of pulling the reins a little bit or guiding it. That's how rapid prototyping should be. Okay, I went with 2 red LEDs and 4 green ones. Holes drilled here for the LEDs. So the next step here, I'm going to take the board off and flop all these switches around and solder them, and then mark their holes and drill them. Here's what it looks like with the circuits removed. Okay, the tack switches are now soldered into place, and it became apparent to me that the LCD screen is going to be shifted up a little bit higher than I'd planned for. So I marked out the outside of the bezel so that I can cut it out just in case I need to notch it, which I'm probably going to have to. So some of this PCB work here was it wasn't needed. I should just cut this whole thing out, but that's fine. And now I'll assemble this thing and then mark the holes and drill them. Now that the board's mounted with the switches soldered in place, we can now look at the front half of it for the button detail. And I'll just go through and mark all these buttons and then drill them. Okay, now I've got the holes drilled for the buttons. Now I'll put the board on here and look things over quick. And now here the board is assembled and slightly adjusted with the overlay. I also put the printed paper overlay behind just to give an idea what it looked like. Okay, I cut the hole out for the screen of the circuit board. Now it's starting to actually look like a user interface, at least. Feeling like a little bit. And now I'm going to mount the LEDs. The LEDs are now soldered in place. Now I'm going to make the holes black and make it black behind so that the light is piped through and interfere with each other. I made that dark with a Sharpie. Tried to get the inside of the holes the best I could. You see the overlay of the circuit. I wasn't happy with how the buttons were sticking out, so I recessed around all the buttons so that I can give a more natural flat feel to the overlay. And I also reprinted the overlay. So that's pretty much what its final version is going to look like. Now I need to find a way to stick this fast. I'm probably going to use some RTV here at first and see how that works out. And after that, I'll probably end up wiring it up and programming it and everything. I may put some conductive spray on the back of it just in case there's a static discharge. I just applied some RTV blue silicon gasket maker. I don't think it really matters what color you pick, though they do have some black stuff out now that doesn't stink anymore. But anyway, so here we can see now it is very flat surface. So if I get a little bit more artiste in me and fix up these graphic overlays, maybe do a little bit of a color print, I think this will look damn good. Here you can see that it is in fact flat. You can hear the positive action of the tactile switch. Well, I removed the tape that was holding the overlay on because now the overlay is fastened to the plexiglass with RTV cement. And I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. I think this is definitely a method I'll be using in the future whenever I need to build a keypad or anything. And now I need to wire it up and program it and make it do something.